There was once a lion cub on the Serengeti in Africa who had been abandoned by his father and mother. One day he was captured by dog trainers and taken home. They had compassion on him, but they feared him, and they did not know how to raise a lion. They named him Fido and trained him to be a dog. But Fido was not a dog, and he did not understand dog tricks. So they beat him and scolded him when he did not do tricks like the dogs. The cub wanted to do well, and he tried hard to be a dog, but he could not understand why dogs had a petulant need to please the humans. He had no desire to chase a rubber ball until his paws ached, like the dogs would. He didn't like dog food, nor did he want to play with rubber balls. He especially despised doing handshakes with humans over and over, and whenever the little cub would squeeze out a little roar, the people and the dogs would scold him and beat him and say how foolish he was, for they feared he would truly learn to roar like a lion one day. A little cub would misbehave, no matter how hard he wanted to be a dog. Finally, one day, the trainers sold Fido to clowns from a traveling circus. The clowns knew how to train lions to do circus shows, and so they worked with Fido to be a circus lion. But they trained him to never roar and kept him passive with thick stakes as a reward for doing circus shows in a clown's costume. One day, Fido the lion was grown and decided he just didn't like being a clown. He thought this clown act was nonsense, even though they did it in a new town each week. He didn't know why, but it just seemed like a very silly idea. Fido just couldn't help that he hated being a circus clown. Fido became sad, and one day he could not make himself come out of his cage, no matter what they did. As he was alone in his cage, one day while the circus was going, Fido the lion just yawned out of boredom, but his yawn was a little roar. That little roar startled him and made him quiver. Why? What was that? He wasn't sure, but he liked it. So each time Fido was alone, he tried it again, quietly. Secretly, it was like a secret joy to Fido as he roared a little to himself. Then, one day, another older lion was sick and stayed in the cage during the circus, so he heard that little roar. The old lion said, "Do that again." So the Fido roared a little longer and a little louder. The old lion said, "That made me feel better. I haven't heard a roar since I was a cub." Fido and the old lion both sat up and thought about that. "Are you supposed to do that?" said the old lion. Fido said, "I don't think so. I only do it alone." Whenever he was alone, he'd practice his roar a little more. One night, a cougar and a bear came out from a nearby forest and said, "Who has such a majestic song?" Fido looked out over to them and said, "I do." And the bear and the lion both said, "That is lovely. Do it again. Encore, encore." Now, as he kept doing this, the clowns caught on to his roaring and said, "We must starve him until he remembers he is a clown and comes back to doing the circus show." But Fido didn't care and barely ate anything anymore. So Fido stopped roaring, stopped walking, laid in his cage very sad until finally they just left his cage unlocked. Fido had begun to get old now and didn't care. Fido became pale and skinny, but one night he saw a wolf coming close to the circus tents to hunt a circus llama. A lion was very fond of the llama, and so he sat up and suddenly roared a little. The wolf became as stiff as a statue. The lion wondered and roared once more, but louder. The roar was powerful, so powerful that it echoed off of nearby buildings and caused everything around to quiver. And the wolf fled away like lightning into the woods. So Fido the lion got up and walked away out of the cage, sauntering into the woods, even though he was hungry, because he had heard himself roar, and for the first time he realized he was a lion. And Fido remembered, lions do not need anyone else to feed them. Now that he remembered he was a lion, he did not need to dress like a clown or do tricks for anyone. Fido knew he was a lion, and he decided that he could live like a lion, he could lead like a lion, he could hunt like a lion, trusting that he was made to be more than a clown. Fido knew he could lead himself and feed himself because he was a lion and he'd heard himself roar.